do it.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So we're going to go over how to finish up the cat drawing from last Sunday. And here I have opened up my Procreate app. So if I exit out of here and I click into Procreate, we should get something like this with all of our paintings that we've been working on here. So to edit our cat again, we're just going to find our cat painting in our list here, and we're going to click on it. And we can edit here. So for mine, I clicked twice because my cat is in like a folder, but you guys should only have to click once.
Can you do that one more time, Emma, just to show?
Yeah.
Just to show them. Yeah.
So your guys' might look something more like this, where you have a list of all of your paintings, and then you're just going to want to click on your cat, and it should open up.
Perfect. Thank you.
And if it was left just how it was when we did it, or for some reason some things have changed, you should have your reference photo of your cat still here. But if it's not, I'll show you guys how to import that in again. So to get rid of this reference photo, I'm just going to click on this X right here to get rid of it. So click here. And now we're going to go over how to bring that back up just in case if yours isn't there. So I'm going to go up to my wrench up here in the corner. And I'm going to go to Canvas, which is the second one over. Then I'm going to go to Drawing Guide. And I'm going to turn this little toggle right here. This is going to be turned on like that. Oh, sorry, not Drawing Guide. It's Reference, my bad. So I'm going to turn on this toggle here on Reference.
And it should pop right up again. Okay, good. All right, excellent.
Yeah, and just a review here. So if this ends up popping up in a not very nice place, so maybe if it's right in the center of your drawing, you don't want it there, there's this little gray line right at the top. And as long as you click on that gray line,
you can move it.
Drag it from there and move it anywhere on the screen.
I saw you do that with your finger too. You can do that with your finger. Okay, great.
You do it with your finger as well. If your screen here is a little too big, you want to make it a little bit smaller, you can pick up this bottom corner and you can drag it to maybe something a little bit smaller.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So let's make sure that we have our brush that we want before we get started. So I'm going to go up here and my brush is highlighted blue. So that means that it's currently selected. So if I were to draw something, it would start drawing with my brush. It looks white because my paint is white. But I'm undoing there by clicking two fingers. So I'm just going to get rid of that brush stroke. So tap two fingers to the screen. There we go. So I'm going to go to my brush here. I'm going to click it once, and it's going to pull up all of my options. And I believe the brush we were using, I believe it was under drawing. So I'm going under drawing, and it's this one right here. I believe it's Oberon, is how you'd say it. So once I've made sure that that brush is selected, I'm going to tap outside of the box like that. And I can test it real quick. Yep, so I do have that brush. I'm just going to undo that.
And if your brush is bigger or smaller,
so
how do you adjust that again?
Yeah, so if you scribbled there and it was just super big or super small, this little button right here, you can adjust to change the size of your brush.
Got it. That little top navigation. Okay, excellent. Oh yeah, look at that.
Yeah, if for some reason you were painting and your brush looked something like this instead.
That's the transparency, right? Yeah, yep. That's the bottom one. Okay.
The bottom one. And I want to bring it all the way to the top there.
Okay, got it.
And because we've done most of our sketching layers are like big block colors already, I want to use a pretty small brush because we're going to be adding in some details.
Yeah, now that's just like painting.
Yeah, kind of work your way down to the smaller brushes. I'm going to use about 2%. Yeah. So this brush is at 2% right there.
Okay.
I'm gonna undo so you can't see it. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna check what layer we're on. We don't want to start drawing all over the screen here and realize that we've been drawing on the wrong layer.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go, 2 is these 2 squares right up here. And I can see all of my layers. So I'll kind of toggle through these so you can see them a little bit better. But last week we started adding some of our details. You can see that we added some detail to the eye there.
Yes.
With my detail layer, I want to make sure I'm on details. Something that we can also do now is I can hide my outline.
Oh, look at that.
And I think we're ready to not have to use that outline. So I'm going to actually leave that hidden. Make sure my details is selected.
To hide your outline, you just click on the box on the right next to it and uncheck it, basically.
Yep. If you have like a blank box, that means it's hiding.
Okay, got it. Cool.
So I think we are now ready to draw. So I'm just going to tap outside my screen and we're ready to go. So I'm going to zoom in to.
So just make sure, guys, you're on the detail layer, not an earlier layer. Okay.
So I'm going to zoom in to my cat's eye here. And I can also zoom into the cat's eye here. This is nice because we're looking at pretty much the same thing at the same time. We can make sure we're getting all of our stuff down. And another nice thing we can do here with our reference photos, we can sample colors from it. So we did this a little bit last time. I'll show you how to do it again here. So if I want to take this dark brown color right here and start outlining the bottom of my eye, I'm going to take my finger here. I'm just going to hold down on the screen. And here it should pop up. If I hold down outside of my reference box, it's not going to go onto my reference photo.
So you have to start on the photo.
So you want to start on the photo here. And then I'm going to make sure that this little arrow gets dragged.
Oh, look at that. Oh my God, I'm out of a job.
So let's test it out real quick. Do we have the right color? Yep, there it is.
So when you do that, you hold it down and you make that circle, it will automatically change your brush color. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So now we can start here. So
Jesus.
I have that dark color and I'm looking at my reference photo here and I see this thicker dark line. So I'm going to add that underneath the eye of my cat.
Yeah, notice you guys, this is just a basic drawing, that this line isn't the same level of thickness all the way around. It's darker at the bottom and then lighter at the top.
Exactly.
There you go.
Noticing that, so it's a little bit lighter up top. So if I want, I have 2 options here with Procreate. So I don't know if you noticed me doing this, it's kind of subtle. I leaned my brush a little bit more to the side. I went over my line a few times to make it a little bit darker. I also kind of pressed harder. If I press harder, let's see, I get that kind of thickness.
Right. So you don't want that kind of thickness. You want a lighter. Good tech. Good technique.
Yeah.
I got you.
It's almost like painting with an actual brush or an actual pencil. So when I do this lighter area, I'm pushing lighter with my pen.
Okay. Great.
And I'm using the exact same brush. I didn't change the size of my brush at all. That's all just pressure. So now I can use that same kind of brown dark color and do this pupil part, the eye. And that is a very skinny almond shape. One of the things I like to do is if I kind of mess up a little bit, I can go back here to my eraser. So if I click on my eraser, it's going to have that tool selected, but it's going to be using whatever eraser I was using last time. So I don't know what eraser it's actually using. So I want to make sure that I'm using that drawing one. So I'm going to go click on my eraser a second time, and it is on the Oberon, which is the one I want. So I'm going to exit out, and I want it a little bit smaller. I'm also going to put it at maybe 2 or 3%.
Your eraser. Okay.
And then I can erase the edge here of the pupil a little bit.
Oh, cool. I see. Okay.
So now I'm looking at my reference photo again. And I have kind of a dark region around this pupil, and then the border is a little bit lighter.
Well, particularly towards the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
which is how eyes work,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the reflection where that light source is, that white square is where the
Mm-hmm.
light is hitting the eye, and underneath it, you'll see it's lighter,
Yeah.
and over the top, it's darker.
Mm-hmm. The eyelid sometimes like casts a little shadow.
The eyelid casts a shadow, and it's also the way the light is hitting the eye. So,
Mm-hmm.
mhm.
So what I want to do is I'm going to sample a color here, and I'm going to sample some of these lighter tones towards the bottom of the eye. I'm not going to do that bright highlight quite yet. I'm going to do one of those paler greens I sampled from like
Yeah.
over here.
Okay.
I'm going to add.
And you're still using your number 2 over on. I see. Same way. Same material. Same. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I like to use a pretty similar, like I like to not change my brush a ton.
Do you know people who like to do that?
I watched like some other like artists online who tend to do that too. And their reasoning, which I think makes sense for me when I draw too, is I want it to feel like I'm drawing with a traditional medium.
Right.
And so sometimes like I have too many options.
Right.
And if I'm actually painting, I'm likely going to be using the same brush for a while, or like a same type of brush. Yeah.
So interesting.
It's funny, kind of like trying to get back to drawing through it. It's interesting. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sample again, and now I'm gonna go get that really bright white color from the eye right there. And then I'm looking, it looks like it's kind of like a square shape, and it kind of goes like slightly on the edge, that pupil for a second. So I'm pretty zoomed in right now. I want to zoom out a little bit real quick.
Okay.
I want to see how this
How
looks.
that looks. And look at how little detail, how little light and dark detail you've got to do just to already make that eye start to come out.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like to do is I like to choose which areas are the most important to me. So for a cat like this, I think the areas on the eyes and the nose and the ears
Yeah.
and probably the paws are the areas that I want to put the most attention into and the most detail into. And I can leave a lot of the other areas pretty loose still.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Face. Nice job. All right. So you want to work on the nose and the mouth next?
Yep. So I'm going to zoom into this nose here. Zoom into the nose. All right. So this shape is not quite this shape, but I'd say it's roughly the right size. It might be a little bit bigger than what I need. So what I'm going to do is I'm almost going to carve out this shape from here. And I'll show you what I mean. That kind of sounds scary, but it's not too bad. So instead of sampling that pink color, I'm going to sample the white on my painting next to the pink. So now I should have this white color on my pen. And now I can come in here. I can start covering up some of those light pink areas to make it more of that diamond shape that's truer to my reference photo. So now that I'm a little bit closer to my reference photo, I want to start adding some of my darker tones. So I'm going to sample a color, and I'm going to sample it from my reference photo. So I'm starting it on top of the reference image, just holding my finger down, and I'm going to drag it over to this dark brown tone. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. I'm going to add this kind of curved line there. Same kind of curve here. I think that dark tone is also being used in this area. There we go. I'm gonna go back to my reference. I'm gonna sample those kind of darker brown, purpley colors that are in here. And I can add that to either side. So there's a little bit of it right here. And all I'm doing is I'm just comparing my reference photo to my cat. And I'm just trying to look for areas that have roughly that brown tone. And I can just add those in. One of the lines that I feel like is really important, or it's like a small change for a big impact, is right here. Do you see this like super, super fine light highlight?
Yep.
That's gonna make that nose look really three-dimensional if we can add that in. So I wanna zoom in pretty close so I can make sure I sample that color. Otherwise it's gonna be hard to find that line. So I'm now gonna hold my finger down and I'm gonna hover it over that light pink. And it's right about, let's see if I can get it.
And that's because there's a turn in the nose, which is interesting. It happens in human noses too.
Mm-hmm.
There is a turn in the nose. It turns up and then it flips down. That's why you have that sort of dark area.
I penciled that in, but I think it's a little too thick. So I'm going to undo. I'm going to go back to my pencil. I'm going to go down to 1%. And then I'm just going to barely lightly kind of put that in. And check the other side. The other side has it a little bit too. Not as dramatic.
Yeah.
Kind of looks more like that. Let's zoom out and see what that nose looks like. It's already starting to look a little bit more three-dimensional. I'm not quite sold on it yet. So I'm going to go back in real quick.
That is like, now that's the true artist statement. It's on the way.
Yeah. So what I'm going to look at here is I'm noticing, I think what's happening is my nose looks a lot more flat than the reference because I have this single tone here. So it's conveying like a flat surface because it's all this single flat tone. And my cat's nose, it actually kind of like comes up and it
there's
down.
gray bits, right, because of the shift in value.
So I want to create that illusion. So to do that, you can kind of see in the reference photo, I'd say the lightest area of the nose is here. And it's really, really subtle. And then these darker tones are at the bottom. And they're at the bottom here too.
And those are shadows, right? Those are shadows. That's where the nose turns down in. So when Emma says there's things that she wants to focus on, what she's focusing on without really maybe even knowing that she's focusing on it are the value shifts that happen as like something protrudes out and comes back, right? Like a cube.
Yeah.
So she's looking for the shadow areas, and these are all midtones, so they're a little bit harder to see. Right? Okay.
I think it also takes some time of like painting and color mixing to start to notice those colors.
To start to see that stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to sample these colors here. And sometimes like you might be looking at the reference photo and thinking like, oh, these colors look exactly the same. But if I sample it, I know it's that exact color. Right. I put it here. Let's see. Oh, I'm erasing, that's why. I put it here. They're next to each other. You can see that they're actually not the same color.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Which is kind of nice because you can actually test how like good your color like intuition is. Because you can actually move those exact colors and put them on top of each other and see how close you were and that kind of thing.
Cool.
So I'm going to move my brush back to 2%. And I'm going to move my opacity, which is this bottom one.
To make it a little bit more transparent now?
Yeah. I want something a little bit less abrupt. So it's about 40 or 50%.
So everybody, if you don't know what opacity is the transparency of the color, meaning it lets more of the color go through. right? Like a glaze is super transparent.
Yeah. I think of it like if you take a watery color you're painting and like put it over top.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
Okay.
And the more times I go over top of that opacity, the darker it's going to be. It's like layering more and more. So look at that reference photo, and we have this region that's going up. I'm using that opacity, or that lighter opacity. It's giving me some nice transparency. And it's actually kind of going all the way up here.
Yeah, so in a way, it's a little bit like dry brushing.
Mm-hmm.
But not really, but kind of.
Oh, this is interesting. Look at this.
Yeah, you can do that little bridge color up there.
Yeah, do you see this shape here?
Yep.
And here?
I'm picking up what you're laying down.
Yeah, you're
Hopefully the rest of you are too.
So I'm
this is
almost
actually a long enough video that we might actually put it. This is a long enough video that we might actually make it as just a second, like a part 2.
Yeah. So I kind of like outlined that light area with this darker kind of purpley color. I'm gonna sample this white color in here. I'm gonna turn the opacity back up. I'm gonna lay that in because I think that's a very important value change, because it's showing that plane, that bridge of the nose. It's gonna make it look more like a 3-dimensional shape. And then I'm gonna continue that lighter tone down into the face of the cat here. And bring it all the way to the edge of the lip here. And I'm pretty zoomed in, so I feel like I don't quite know exactly what it looks like. So I'm gonna zoom out and take a look. That's looking better to me. I'm gonna sample this darker tone here, right above the nose. I can add that there. There. I'm gonna zoom out, take a look. Now I feel like I'm starting to get somewhere. I think for now, I'm gonna double check, zoom out here. Yeah, so I think what I wanna add now is I'm noticing how these two areas are about the same. They're using that very same white. So I'm gonna sample that color, zoom out a little bit, zoom out here, down here. Bring it down on this side. You have that little pink part of the lip showing. Like that. There we go. So I'm gonna say we're gonna move on from the nose there. And let's now move on to the ears. Let's do that. So I'm gonna zoom into this ear here, zoom into this ear here. And I'm not gonna put as much detail in the ears as I did the eyes and the nose, because to me, they're not what I want my viewer to focus on. I want my viewer to get sucked into the eyes and the nose. I want them to focus on that part of the cat. So I want the ears to feel convincing. So I want to make them feel as convincing as I can with as little strokes as possible, is the goal. So usually to do that, what I like to focus on are the edges, and I just want to make sure that my larger areas are still accurate. And I'm noticing they're not perfectly accurate. So what I want to do first is I want to focus on this edge here, right on the side of the ear. I have this lighter brown tone. Move it there. And that follows the edge of the ear up here. It also kind of follows the side of my cat's face. Down here. Just looking until it touches this area down here. Now I'm going to go back here, make sure I have that light area how I want it. I'm noticing there's also this really light area here, really, really fine line. Make sure that my brush size is pretty small. I'm going to add that fine detail-y line like there. I'm noticing here.
Notice as well, guys, that she's not drawing it absolutely solidly straight across. It's a little fuzzy in some places. It's a little thinner in some places. It's thicker in others. Just observe that. Just like a regular drawing class.
Yeah.
Just like regular drawing.
I sampled this darker tone here on the edge of the eye. And I'm gonna lay that in. And it looks like when we did our blocking in, I also laid down that darker color.
That's significant. That's a significant shadow.
Mm-hmm. There's another one right on this side of the ear. And that shadow that I added wasn't popping up because it's almost exactly the same tone as this. So kind of like how we carved out our nose, we're gonna carve out that shadow. So I'm taking the light color directly around the shadow. So I'm taking it from here and taking it from here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can come in here and carve out that shadow shape.
Do you see what she's doing, guys? She's taking the light, and when she says carve out, she means she's going over the dark with the light areas.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe a little different than you might think about it. What about those little white hairs? Are you going to get any of that sort of little light hair in that section that's drifting over? Yeah, that stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have a hairbrush that I think would be kind of fun to use.
Oh, there we go. Now you're talking.
The last thing I'm going to do on this ear before we come back to it later with the hair texture brush, so I'm going to take this dark brown from this area in here, and I'm going to add that in, kind of frame the eye, or not the eye, the ear.
So what I can really see, guys, is that the drawing, it is true that you can trace the sketch, but you're still going to have to train yourself to see the lights and the darks.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to mix, right? The computer's doing the mixing for you. Got it. Oh, that's really cool. All right, and we're going to do the hairbrush later. Oh, already that looks great.
Yeah, I'm liking it a lot more.
Me too.
So I'm going to zoom into this ear, and we're going to do
same thing.
The same thing. This ear, I can already tell, has a lot more dark values than that other one next to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can show you what I mean. I'm going to sample this color, move it over, and get the difference.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's hard to
notice
that.
That's the dark side of the thing. Makes sense. The light's coming from the left.
I'm just going to undo, take that color off. Okay. So I'm going to take that light. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see it. That really light edge, just like we did before. Make sure I sample it right about there. Make sure my brush is pretty small. That 1% here, so it's really small. And then I'm gonna outline the edge of the ear. There's even like a little tiny wick of hair that goes up. I think that's really cute. I'm gonna add that in there.
Like the devil kitty. Yeah. It makes them look kind of devilish.
You could consider my cat a devil kitty.
Is that your cat, Emma?
This is not my cat, actually.
Your cat is a nightmare.
She's not very nice. She's a very scary cat. I'm scared of her.
Remember when she made you cry during a lesson?
Yeah, she bit me.
Remember that? She
I
bit you hard.
do. I have the scar to show it.
Yeah. She
Yeah,
bit you hard.
she did. So I just changed the size of my brush to 2%. Now I'm gonna add these shadows right next to those highlights. You can see that they're darker than the area in the inner part of the ear.
They're not the darkest, they're mid-tone. So that's why you're adding them in now and not before.
Yes.
Right? You need your darks and your lights in first so that you can see what are your dark midtones and what are your light midtones.
Mm-hmm. There's so much nuance with midtones. Sometimes you feel like you're like taking a shot in the dark until you have like the darkest and the lightest lights to compare them to. And then I'm going to go back in and sample that dark brown tone right in here. And I'm not super worried about making it look like it's fur right now and getting those overlapping areas, because we're going to do that later.
With the fur brush. Sandra, did you hear that? It's a fur brush. There's a fur brush.
I can show you too. I have downloaded another artist's fur brushes. I'll show you what they do if you guys want to see today, but I'll also show you the one that you guys will have by default. So I'm going to zoom out, and I'm thinking that looks pretty good. That looks
pretty good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. One of the areas that I've been noticing is bugging me when I'm zooming out is this pink area right here. I think I just need to
cover that up a little more.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at that pink area is this area here in my cat. So I'm just going to sample that color. And I'm just going to block that in. That's one of those areas that when I was doing my sketch, I was kind of going fast. Blocking in the big shapes kind of got lost. So now I'm going to work on my paws right here and zoom in. So here we have a little bit more of my underpainting showing. We also have the most dramatic shadows. You can see like where the cat is sitting on the floor, and you can see like really sharp edges. This light against that dark, like that's really dramatic. And once we add that, it's going to add like more realism to the image. So I'm going to take my dark, almost completely black for my image, and I'm going to start filling that in.
See how she's finding the little shadows? That's a negative space thing, right, guys? So sometimes you use the background to help you carve out. Notice how Emma's going back and forth. Sometimes she's working with the cat. Sometimes she's working with the background. Now that's painting. That's not something that you can automatically see. So this is where your drawing skills are going to have to help you. That we've been working on, so I know you guys have them. Very nice.
Oh, this way. I've been watching my screen with my computer at the same time as watching on my iPad. I just tried to select something on my iPad with my computer. There we go. So I have those dark shapes in. You guys probably noticed that like these areas are also really dark, but we're gonna add that later.
Okay.
And I'll show you how to do that. I'm not going to go into as much detail in the paws as I did with the others. I just want to make sure that they're convincing enough. So I'm going to look in here, and I want to just add a few more shadows. So some of those areas are like these little areas in her paw. And there's very gradual color difference right here that I think is important. I'll show you. If I sampled this light tone here, and I put it down, and I sampled this color right over to the side, they look like they should be about the same, but they're just slightly different, and it's a really important slight difference. So I've sampled that color off to the side right here. I have a little bit of paint there. I can probably cover that up. I'm gonna add a shadow over here. You can see right here. kind of goes over top there. And then I'm just going to cover up that little orange part like that. Maybe I'll take that lighter tone and put it there. So now I'm going to zoom out and take a look. And I think that's about as convincing as I need my paw to be for this drawing. And for my personal style, I like it being a little loose. If you guys like it more detailed, you can definitely spend more time.
More time, yeah.
I'm going to zoom into this paw. And I see this color change right there. I think that's the most important one. So I'm going to sample that dark tone. Oh yeah. And that there. And there. Move over to the next paw. And I think that one's doesn't have a ton of color change. I'm going to sample that paw to make sure the color that I have down is the same. But it looks like it is. So I'm actually going to leave that just as it is. If I want to, I can maybe fill in that pink area, cover up that underpainting a little bit more. And zoom out. Nice. Moving over to this paw right over here. This one has the brightest highlight right there. We already added that kind of lighter color, but let's refine that shape. Right now, this shape on my drawing is going way at this angle, but it actually kind of angles inwards in the drawing. So I'm going to sample that bright white, change it so it's kind of less angling to the side. Take this medium color right in here, add that in. And then finally taking that darkest color right in the corner, sampled it from there, adding that as well. And then we'll zoom out and take a look.
Very nice.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to do before we add our fur texture is there's some areas in here that have these red underpainting poking through. I like my underpainting poking through, but not quite this much. So I'm just gonna sample the colors on my painting that are around it and cover them up a little bit. They don't have to be perfectly filled in because I do like my underpainting popping up, but I think right now it's a little glaring. There we go. So now we can use our fur brush. So if you guys remember before, we have two ways of adding this fur texture. The last way we did it was we used our blender brush right here. This is a little finger right between your brush and your eraser. And this is basically gonna like push your colors around on the screen. And we use that short hair. This time though, I wanna actually use it on our brush. I'm gonna go to the brush instead, click on the brush. I'm gonna go to materials. I believe your guys's, if it's not on materials, it might be on like details or fine tuning or something like that. And I'm gonna select that short hair brush. If you accidentally click it twice, it's gonna pull up this screen. And this will let you do like lots of changes to your brush. So you can like personalize it for your own work, but we're not gonna worry about that yet. And I'm just gonna click done to get out of there. I'm gonna click outside my screen. And let's go to that ear real quick and add those fun little brush strokes. I'm gonna sample this light tone here. It's kind of hard because it's really fine lines. Let's see, how big is my brush? Yeah, I'm gonna actually take this color on my drawing. You can see it better. I don't know if you guys can see it super well if I zoom in. hopefully you can see it better on your own screens, but we're getting these little furry textures. I'm adding in here. If we zoom in here, or if we move over here, we can see it's kind of overlapping top of those dark areas. I'm going to take this brown tone right here and go over top of that darker brown. Swipe upwards like this. Get some more fur. You can use it over here. I added these like blocky highlights, and I could smooth those out with the fur texture if I wanted to, but I actually kind of like them there. I like to have like a nice balance of like really soft and like blocky shapes. And that's my own like stylistic preference. If you want to smooth everything out.
But it's your own sense of preference, but it's also just general right drawing balance, right? And so it's like a natural drawing balance. You all should pay attention to these. This is the way to, you know, kind of lay things out. If you want to get into more detail, you can, but oh, that's really cool.
I talked to this artist one time, and he had these really pretty oil paintings. And he had like really blocky way of like applying his paint, where he had like his areas of colors were like blocked in. And I was talking to him about his artwork, and he told me the trick is not to overlick your painting. That was a really funny way of putting it.
That's hilarious.
And blending it in.
I love it.
Overlooking it.
Don't overlook it.
Yep.
Don't love it up too much.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just coming in here with that brush area, and I'm just kind of blending my areas of color together. And I'm not doing all of my areas, because I do like having that balance of blended and not blended. It's easy definitely to get carried away and like overlook it. So you guys can go through your painting and just go to your different areas of blocked in colors and just kind of make those have slightly smoother transitions with that texture. I feel like this part's the funnest part, because you're just kind of getting to play around a bit. What I did here is I added this darker kind of furry area, and it's a little too much fur for me, or too much darkness. So actually I can go take this orange color and then go back into
translucently put. Nice. Now that's blending, you guys. That's like the blending. That's the idea behind blending with your brush, right? If you have a lighter color, you're blending it over the darker color. There's a little bit of a medium that comes out between the light and the dark as you blend. That's like a proper transition. So you'll spend your life figuring out how to do that. Looks like it's a little easier with Procreate. The idea is still the same. All right. Yep, we're definitely going to do this as a separate video, Emma. So I'll get it out to everybody.
Sounds good. I feel like this is the funnest part.
It really is.
So one of the brushes I want to show you guys today that you won't have, but I think is still kind of fun to show. I can tell you what artist it was and where to find it if you do want it. Okay, so we're going to use this for the whiskers of the cat. So what I'm going to go to my brushes right up here. If you go to Tatty Fur and Hair, so this is something I'm going to have that you guys aren't going to have, but I'll show you how to get it if you're interested. So I'm going to go to Tatty Fur and Hair.
Tatty.
And it has all of these different options. So I won't go over all of them, but there's some cool stuff where they'll automatically, like if I take this color And without changing the color of my brush, if I take the lighter version of it, it's going to add some like natural shading to it. But we're not going to worry about that. Okay. The brush I'm going to use is called Single Hair. I want to bring it larger in size, and I'm just going to show it to you. So I'm going to take this like dark color and swipe across. You can see kind of how it acts. It kind of does it naturally fades away and gets narrower, which is exactly what we want for our cat's whiskers. I'm going to bring this down and say 6%. Yeah, I like 6%. I'm going to take a white. I'm just sampling it from my painting. Then I can just swipe. Oh, just swipe. Here. It's going to add some whiskers. I can also now go into different areas. She has these little whisker kind of looking things right at the top of her eyebrows. I can add those too. I could also go back into the areas on the ears. If I want to add like individual hairs, I can. Go over here, add a few more individual hairs. And this part would be fun if you want just to go around and like pick out some fun like individual strands of hairs that you want to add.
Well, like the whiskers, right?
Mm-hmm. I have a scratch on my screen that's kind of making it hard to see, but there you go. So I will show you guys real quick, if you're interested in getting free brushes, how to do that. So I'm going to exit out of Procreate. And I'm going to go here real quick. Okay. So this, let's see. Okay. This is just Safari. This is my search bar. I'm going to search Procreate. And it's going to bring me to Procreate's website. And if I click on Procreate, like the first link, here's their homepage. They have a very pretty website. And I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. And under discussions, there's going to be this link that says resources. I'm going to click on that. So here, a bunch of artists have created their own brush sets, and they're giving them away for free, basically. So if you go through here, you can just look through. They have a calligraphy brush, a rain brush, hair bow stamps. There's multiple pages of these. They have palettes if you're looking for those, sketching brushes, realistic paper cut effect. They have a tutorial. It's a tutorial. So you can go here and you can use like narrow down your search to like the newest, most like replied to, that kind of thing. But if you click on a link here, they'll usually ask if you like want to give them your email, and they'll send you, if I've done it before, they'll give you the pack for free, and it might like send you the artist's newsletter that they send out every month. So it's kind of like they're giving you the brushes for free, but they're also like, you're giving them your email so like they can show you their artwork kind of thing. But if you're interested in brushes, this is what I recommend. It is downloading stuff from the internet, so of course you do want to be a little bit careful. But that's where I got that Tatty for brush pack, is from here. Yeah, so I'm gonna go back to Procreate. And the last thing I want to do is I want to add the shadow underneath my cat and these areas of light. So I'm going to go back to my layers. We have our floor and we have our wood, right? So I want to put a layer in between wood and underpainting. So to do that, I'm going to click on wood and I'm going to select that layer. So it's highlighted blue. Now when I add a layer, so I'll add a layer now by clicking that plus sign, it's going to import that layer on top of wood. If you added a layer and it, for some reason, didn't go in between wood and underpainting, you can hold down on layer, and then you can slide it in between whatever ones you want. And I want to make sure it's between wood and underpainting. secondly, I want to change this from being a normal layer to making it an overlay layer. I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to go to N right here. It's going to bring up a whole bunch of options. And I want to scroll through all these options until I find overlay. I'm going to make sure that I click on layer 9 again to get out of there. I want to make sure it's selected, so it's blue, and I'm going to exit. Now I'm going to change my brush to something a little bit softer. So I click on my brush to get all of those options. Then I'm going to go to airbrushing. Then I'm going to click on, let's say, medium hard brush. I'm going to click out. And let's see, what does this look like? Ooh, that was kind of cool. So what the overlay brush does is it's gonna, without changing your line work or making things fuzzy, I'll show you the difference. You don't have to do this part. But if I have like a normal layer, not an overlay layer, and I want to add these light areas on top of my wood, so I start brushing in those lighter shadows. If I zoom in, you can see that it's starting to cover up that wood texture. And I don't necessarily want it to do that. So if I do the same thing, and I put it on an overlay layer, which is the one that we just set up, do you see how that detail isn't lost? I can still see the grain of my wood just fine. That's exactly what we want. If yours is not coming out that color, I would go to your colors and find a very light tone. I'm using, if this top corner is pure white, mine is right there. So it's really, really close to pure white. So now I can add that light area right behind my cat. Maybe I made that too wide. Let's make it a little bit narrower. There's another light area right here. And now I'm going to move up all the way to pure white. And its most intense areas are kind of in this center. So just like we can add those lighting light colors, we can also add shadows. So I'm going to add now a dark, almost black color. And that can go right underneath my cat. And then it kind of goes off to the side like that. I'm also noticing in my reference photo that the area above my cat is kind of lost to shadow. So now I can come in here and darken that upper area of the image. And I'm pushing hardest at the top corner and then gradually lifting my pen up to make it softer and blend in the canvas. And I believe we're now done. So I'm gonna tap on my reference photo here. I'm gonna click on the X. I'm gonna get rid of that. I'll zoom in. I'm gonna open up my layers here so you guys can see them and see how your layers are different. I'm gonna rename this layer overlay. So it's a little. So if yours looks something like mine, we'll have that inserted image that we used before to trace, but it's now hidden. We have our floor layer, which is that darker brown. We have our wood layer, which is that texture right up here. We have our overlay, where we added our shadows on the floor. We have our underpainting, that's behind our cat. Then we have our color blocking layer. And then finally, so we have our detail layer. And I'll show you guys real quick how to save this photo to your phone and export it.
That sounds great. Great job, Emma.
So I'm gonna, yeah. I'm gonna go to the wrench right up top here.
Do you have a rapid test?
I'm going to click share. It's right next to Canvas. And that's going to give you a bunch of options. We can go over what all these mean. I think you'll recognize a few of them. And I'm going to go to JPEG. So it's going to give you, you can send this to people, email it, download it. I'm going to go down here and click Save Image. And then if I go out, I click on my camera roll, there it is.
That's great, Emma. Thank you so much. Bravo. We'll be back on Sunday with another lesson, but this is the details so that you can finish it. I'll be posting this shortly. Great work, hon.
That's good.